Hey guys, thanks so much for choosing this awesome canvas option. I'm so excited to get to paint with you, but first there's a couple of things we have to do. First thing, get your comfy clothes on and don't put on clothes that you would be sad if they had paint on them, just in case. Get your painting surface covered up with newspaper, old paper, plastic, something like that, because we don't want to get paint on your table. You need your napkins, your brushes, your paint, obviously your canvas, a water cup full of water. Do not pick your favorite cup, it will get paint stuck on it. And turn on some jams, not too loud, you got to be able to hear me. And grab a snack and a drink maybe. That way you will be entertained and happy and not hangry along the way, right? Okay, so I am super excited about this barn painting. I love barns. I love old barns. I don't know why. Probably partially because I grew up in Oklahoma and not necessarily out in the country, but close to the country, and you just see barns. You see barns in Oklahoma. You don't even have to be in the country. So I thought this could just be a really fun painting to do for the holiday, and so let's get started. I've got my paint plate and I've already got paints on it just because I reuse paints or plates and reuse plates until it's just too much and then I throw it away and start over. Partly trying to help the earth. Okay, so I usually set up my plates with white in the middle. I typically use quite a bit of white paint, so I am going to put quite a bit of white paint on here. I'm not going to put all of my white paint on here. I can always go back and get more, right? It's really hard to put back in the canister if you don't use it. Then I am going to grab some blue. And yes, I am going to leave all the white on my brush because it's okay if it gets some white on it. But if that bothers you, then of course, clean your brush. I'm going to grab some black because I know I will probably need it. And I will grab some brown because I might want some of that too. And I'm gonna grab some red. Let's turn my plate. Get some red out. And I am going to clean my brush before I grab yellow. So in order to clean your brush, I tell my boys at school, just to annoy them a little bit, our brush becomes a ballerina and we smush and swirl in the bottom of our cup. Smush and swirl, kind of scrape that brush on the side to get all that extra color off. Rub, 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 rub. No tapping, you will splash. Instead, we wipe. And then this next step is super important. You have to dry your brush, okay? I am going to grab some yellow, and I think I'm just going to put the rest of it on there. Mine's already been used. It didn't have as much in it as what yours does. And I'll go ahead and grab some turquoise too because I'm going to teach you a cool little trick you can do with that. Plus turquoise is pretty. Why not, right? Why not? Okay, so I am going to let this hang out in my water cup for a moment, and I am going to grab my biggest brush. Typically I'll use 4 different size brushes. I use the biggest flat, medium pointy, small pointy. That way I've got a variety. If I'm painting a small area, use a smaller brush. Big area, bigger brush. Okay, so I am going to do the sky first. Of course, you could do whatever kind of sky you want. Daytime, nighttime, sunset, sunrise. You do you, okay? So whatever kind of sun you want to do. Sky, excuse me, you want to do. So I am going to do, I think I'm going to do a day sky. So I'm going to grab a little bit of white, probably about a nickel size, and then I'm going to grab about a chocolate chip amount of blue, and mix those two together. Now, depending on how blue you want it to be, you can continue to add blue in until you like it. I'm going to scrape the extra off. Keep putting my hand in wet paint. Your hands might get covered in paint. That's okay. It'll wash off, I promise. It just does not wash out of your clothes. There we go. I think a night sky with fireworks could be really fun, but I'm not gonna go that far on ya. And then I will work on getting this all painted in. And I'm not all about nice and smooth. I kind of like to flick my brush here and there and here and there. There we go. Now that I got a decent amount of this color on, I'll pop, I know I'm not finished, I know I left big chunks of white. I'm gonna pop over here and do this corner with that same color. And then don't forget your edges. I like to do the very, very top. I like to do the sides, and eventually I will do the bottom. Don't let me forget. Sometimes I forget. I get all excited about thinking I'm finished and then I forget the bottom. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is, oh, hold on, back that train up. We got a little bit right here, guys. I'm gonna get this filled in. If it bothers you to use your bigger brush, you could always switch to a smaller brush for this little chunk over here, but you gotta trust my process. It's okay if we get a little bit of our first layers of paint where they don't belong, because we can go back and fix it, I promise, okay? So don't stress if you get a little paint on the house or a little paint on the flowers. It's fixable. Okay, so now that I got a first layer on there, I see little bitty white spots kind of peeking through, and I see spots that look lighter than others. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the blue on my brush, but I'm going to grab a chunk of white. And I am going to sweep my white, kind of left and right, left and right. And so I'm just shoop, 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 flicking my brush. And I'm trying not to flick up or down. I'm just trying to kind of go left and right, left and right, left and right. If you want some spots to be more noticeable and not as blended, you could totally do that. That just means don't go over it as many times, okay? It's up to you. There we go. All right, so I'm kind of working this in. And what this does is it fills in all the white grooves that the texture of the canvas might have left behind. Plus, it makes it almost feel like there's some wispy clouds off in the distance. So that's kind of a cool little trick you can do to finish filling in, you know, the white spots on your canvas, but to also give it a fun effect. Definitely don't have to, completely optional. Okay. Now there is such a thing as overdoing it. So if you like it, then just stop, right? Or if you got your sky too dark and you really want to soften it up, let it dry a little and then go back and soften it up. You're gonna have to keep putting white on top of white on top of, you know, on top of this if you're wanting to lighten it up a whole lot. If you just want to lighten it up just a little, then what we're doing will work. But if you want to lighten it up a lot, you may have to let it dry some and then flick some white in there, okay? Okay, there we go. Oh yes, I love it. Okay, so now let's go ahead and put a base red down on our barn. And I am a little bit nervous because my flowers are going to be yellow, so I'm going to have to be careful around the flowers, but then the rest of it, if it kind of gets out of the lines, that's okay. So I'm going to let that hang out in here, and I'm going to switch to it's still a flat brush, it's just a smaller flat brush, okay? And I'm going to start with the red that was in my container, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to kind of outline, and then I'll fill it in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a base color on first, up, down, up, down. I want my brush strokes to be up and down on this one, okay? I'm going to put a base red on first, and then we'll kind of dry brush in some dark red and maybe even some brown and kind of give it an actual like barn wood type feel, okay? So I'll go down, I'll outline right here, outline right there, and then up, down, just like that, all the way from one edge to another. Kind of go back, smooth it out. There we go. All right. Now this is also going to be red, so I'll put a line of red across. There we go. Come down here. Come around. If you don't trust yourself with this brush, you can always switch to a smaller brush in these tight spaces. Up to you. There we go. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. I'm going to get close to my flowers without touching them. You can kind of angle your brush one way or another. What I'm doing is I'm flicking my brush up like that, so that way you can't really see where the brush strokes end. It just sort of feathers out. Okay. I think, oh my goodness, this big old chunk down here is barn, isn't it, guys? We gotta paint this big old area in. There we go. Okay. I'm working it. Working it. Oh yeah, baby. Smooth that out. Okay. Lovely. So when I paint in a lot of layers, okay guys? So that's why I was saying earlier, you really have to trust my process, because right now this just kind of looks boring, but you got to trust my process, okay? I'm going to use that pointy brush that I was scooping out paint with earlier. Clean it off really good. Remember, when we clean, we rub it on the bottom like a ballerina. We wipe it on the side to get the extra. And then I will fill in this chunk with red. There we go. And this chunk with red. There we go. And remember, if we get a little out of the lines, that's okay. If there's any other little spots that you kind of need to touch up with the small brush, you could do that. But don't overspend time right now, because we've got more work to do. Okay, more work to do. So now I know this sounds really silly, but I am going to paint the white stripes on my flag white. And the reason being, first one's always red on the flag, so white will be the second one. The reason I'm doing that is because it is a little bit, it has just a little bit of a semi-gloss, so it has just a little bit of a shine when it dries. Not much, it's just a tiny bit, but it's just enough that if the light hits your painting just right, it's going to be so obvious that you didn't paint these white stripes. So I'm going to go ahead and get them painted before I get too much color in the way. And the nice thing about painting the white stripes is you definitely don't have to be perfect because it's white, right? And just cover it right up, no big deal. Okay, so we got that done, right? White, white, white. You kind of have to angle your head to the side to see where you've been. Okay, so now we need to think about what else is going on here. So I want to, man, I'm kind of nervous. Let's see, I think I'm gonna do the red stripes on the flag. And the reason why I didn't do the red stripes on the flag, why I had red on my brush, is because, remember to dry your brush, you have to dry your brush, is because I did not want to do the red and then immediately do my white stripes, and then I might accidentally touch the red stripe with the wet white paint and make pink, so that's why I did the white first. And in fact, you could even do the white at the very, very beginning, but it's probably too late for that for you guys, huh? Now, right now, this is just kind of like all the same value, right? I'm going to teach you guys how to make some different values of red here in a minute, so that way we can make everything just stand out from each other a little bit. There we go. All right, slowly but surely kind of outline the top part, trying to stay out of the wet white paint. And the harder you push your brush, the thicker the brush stroke will be. If you push it just right, you can almost fill that stripe in with one sweep, huh? Okay, don't stress about this, okay? This is just layer one. We're gonna do some work to this whole thing. We're going to do some work to the barn. We're going to do some work to these stripes. We're even going to do some work to the white part of the stripes. Kind of dingy them up a little bit. Flag on the side of a barn is not going to stay beautifully crisp white, that's for sure. Unless, I guess we could say it's a new flag. Then it would be, right? Okay. Sorry if I talk too much. You guys are welcome to mute me. I have been a elementary art teacher for almost 15 years, and I have owned my own art studio for 5.5 years, and oh man, the bottom stripe on the flag is going to be red, but that's okay. But all I've ever taught really is kids, except when I do these adult paint classes at my studio. So I tend to, that's just kind of my teaching style, is to talk a lot, to over-explain, because that's how I teach in my classroom. That's how you have to teach younger students, right? You have to kind of explain, explain, explain. Okay. Now I'm feeling a little better. I want all of this to kind of dry a little bit before I work on the sunflowers. So I'm going to teach you guys a little cool trick that I've learned. So if you want to make a darker red, you can grab a chunk of red and then grab about a chocolate chip amount. I only have turquoise right now, so I'm going to grab a chocolate chip amount of turquoise. And look what it does. It darkens up your red, okay? So I can put this darker red underneath this ledge, or like this overhang on the barn, right? And so it gives it a little bit different feel, which is kind of cool. So red and green are complementary colors. That means that they're across from each other on the color wheel, and you can use red to darken green and green to darken red. Also, some people think, oh, just use black to darken red, but sometimes it kind of makes the red go to like the purple side a little bit if you mix black into red. So that's why I do green into my red. But if you do too much green, it will go to the purple side. So if you kind of put too much in there, then move some of that pile over to the side and add more red back into it, and it should go the value you want it to. There we go. And see how I'm going all the way from one side to the other, kind of smoothing it out. You definitely want to do that. Let's go ahead and make this dark red color too. Okay. And then I think I'll leave this white, like a white trim on the barn. And I think I'll probably do the top black, but I always say black for the end. I don't do black while I try not to anyway, while I'm painting, because I don't want to accidentally smear my colors with the black and make a mess, which is easy to do when you're painting. Okay, now I am going to use this. No, I'm not. I'm going to use that medium flat brush we were using earlier. Dry it up. Remember, we got to dry it. I don't care that there's red in it. I just want to get all the water out. Okay, and I am going to get just the slightest amount on the tip of my bristles, and I am going to kind of flick this up on my barn. Start at that black line and kind of flick it up. So put the edge of the brush right on that black line and flick your wrist up. You can make some of these spots longer, some of them shorter. There we go. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing at the top. Kind of flick that brush down. And we don't want it to be perfectly level. We want some of our flicks to be longer, some of our flicks to be shorter. And then we'll do the same thing over here. Kind of flick, 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 flick. Same thing down here under the flag for sure. Start at the flag, flick down, start at the flag, flick down, flag, flick down. Make some of them shorter, some of them longer. Oh, and we gotta do over here, don't we? There we go. And then I'll make this dark right here across the top so it shows some contrast with the flag. There. That looks cool, right? Oh, maybe I want a little bit down here too. So start at the bottom of the canvas and kind of flick up. Okay, and here in a minute, I will probably add just a little bit of brown in there too, just to kind of give it that dirty feel. Maybe put a little bit of that darker red in there. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Okay, now I could clean this out and work on my blue part of the flag. So I think, yeah, we put some blue. So you can use whatever brush you're comfortable using. I would probably not use the biggest one. This is my medium flat brush, I call it. Kind of outline. Carefully stay in those lines. Fill it in, fill it in, fill it in. From top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom. Just like that. Got a little bit out of the line, so just wipe it off. There we go, and I may have to let my first coat dry, and then I'll put a second coat on there so it's more bold, and we'll even put a little bit of darker blue in there, kind of dingy it up a little in spots, okay? There we go. And I know it looks kind of bland right now. We're getting there, I promise. I need to let all of this red on the barn dry before I do any of the white on the barn. So why not? If your water gets too mucky, guys, go get clean fresh water. My water's starting to get kind of mucky. Okay, so now I am going to work on these flowers a little bit. Now, if you want more of a goldeny yellow, here's a little trick you can do. You can grab some purple, about a, I don't know, mini chocolate chip amount, and you can mix it in with part of your yellow. And what that does is it gives it more of like a mustardy feel, okay? You can even grab a chunk of white and mix that in as well, okay? Just like that. So it gives it a little different feel than the rest of it. So that way you have a couple of options for your sunflowers. So I think I'm gonna put the base yellow on first, and then I'll go back with my mustardy yellow. I am gonna add a chunk of white to my yellow over here. My yellow's falling into my black. That wasn't very good placement, was it, guys? Okay. But by adding a little bit of white to your yellow, it makes it not so see-through. Now, of course, since it's yellow, it's still going to be kind of see-through. There we go. And I get all these little petals filled in. I'm using my medium pointy brush. If you don't trust yourself with your medium pointy brush, then definitely maybe use maybe not the smallest pointy brush, but one that's a little bit smaller. But you know what, if you get a little bit out of the lines, that's okay, because the colors that we're going to be putting next to the yellow are green or brown. So it's really okay if you get a little bit out of the lines, I think. But maybe that's because I'm an elementary art teacher, so I think it's okay to get out of the lines because it happens a lot in my classroom. There we go. And then we've got all of these guys over here. So in addition to being a business owner and an elementary art teacher, I also am a mama. I have a 21-year-old stepson that I have raised since he was 4. That's weird, having a 21-year-old. And I have a 13-year-old daughter who is a visual art major at her school that she goes to, so that's kind of cool. I wish that I would have had that opportunity, although I maybe wouldn't have been as brave as her. She left the elementary school where I teach and went to a different middle school so that she could pursue her visual arts. So brave for doing that. She's been there for 2 years and I still think she's so brave. But she loves it. Okay, so we're gonna let that yellow kind of set up a little bit before we add some more yellow in there, okay? So I am going to show you guys why I have all this yellow in my brush. You have turquoise and you have blue. So I am going to move some of this yellow over here. You can grab a little bit of turquoise or a little bit of blue. It doesn't matter which direction you want to go. And mix that into a pile of yellow. Make sure you grab enough because we have a lot of green leaves. A little bit of blue at a time is going to be more like a lime green. So if you want a darker green, you keep adding in a little bit of blue at a time until you like it. Okay? And mix it really good. Just keep mixing and mixing and mixing until you like your green. And we could even make 2 different greens. Like, I think I'm going to use this, well, let me go a little bit darker. Okay. I'm going to use like a medium green first, and then I'm going to add more blue and make it go even darker. So I have 2 different greens. I like to have different values of color. Value is lightness or darkness of a color. And I like to have more than one value so that it makes my artwork look a little bit more interesting. So now I'll work on getting my leaves filled in. So all of this that's around the sunflowers is actually leaves. And I don't love this color right here, but I am telling myself it's just the base green. We're gonna have, bring some green over here on the side. I'm gonna add more green in there in a minute. So this will just kind of fade away. It's always good to have like one base color, kind of like I do on the yellow and like I did on the red earlier, and then we can layer in different values. Always make your artwork more interesting if you can have different values. There we go. Just like that. Ta-da! Okay, and then there's a lot of green over here. I have never been in a massive sunflower field, but I've been next to a pretty tall sunflowers. Like, they were taller than me. I'm 5'5", and these flowers were taller than me, and that was pretty cool. But I know that there are sunflowers that get even taller than me, like way taller than me. But it's pretty impressive to be next to these. And I know that the sunflowers that have sunflower seeds, the middle of those sunflowers are actually like as big as your head, which is pretty cool, where the seeds grow. Okay, there we go. There we go. One more. Oh yeah, awesome. Okay, so now I'm gonna let the green dry, even though it's not how I want it. I'm gonna let the green dry, and then while the green's drying, I'm gonna work on the middle of the sunflowers. So I think what I'm gonna do is, this brown's a little see-through, so I'm gonna separate my brown. I'm gonna make 2 piles of brown. I'm gonna have a little bit lighter, so chocolate chip amount of white mixed in with my chunk of brown. So I have a lighter brown, and then I'm going to have a darker brown. okay? And instead of putting this on nicely, I am going to dab it on there. So I'm going to put the lighter brown on the outside rim on here. Careful right there on the edge. Like the edge of the flower that's closest to the yellow, be careful on that part so that we don't like massively dab into our sunflower. But then you don't have to be so careful when you get around the middle, okay? So careful right there on the part touching the yellow. And then don't have to be so careful around the middle. Careful, careful, careful. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Kind of using the side of my bristles. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. There we go. Okay. Awesome. Up, down, up, down, up, down. I like to change up my technique sometimes when I'm painting. Kind of makes it fun, right? Okay, now on my other pile of brown, I gotta get all this extra out of my brush. Let's get all this light brown out. Grab a little bit of black and mix that in to my other pile of brown that I had. Oop, that might be too much black. Ugh, I might have went too dark. And I'm gonna put that in the centers. Yeah, I might have went too dark, but I'll show you how we fix that here in just a minute. Right there, just a smidge. And right here. And right here. And right here. Okay, and then what I can do is I can scrape all this dark brown out of my brush. So if you feel like your middles are too dark too, but leave it in your brush, just scrape out what you can. Grab a little bit of the tan, and then you could kind of mix a little bit of the tan in there with the dark brown, and it'll soften it up. See, it kind of gives it a little softness. There we go. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm digging it. It's coming along, guys. Okay. Give my flowers a break for a second. Clean my brush. Get that medium flat one out again that I was doing blue with earlier, remember? Dry that off and get some more blue. And let's sweep another layer of blue on there because I want it to be not so see-through. That's one thing about this paint, is sometimes it takes on a little bit of a see-through feel, but that's easy to fix. You add white to it, or you do multiple layers. There we go. Awesome. Okay, now I want to make a little bit darker blue. So I'm going to grab a little bit of that black, put it over here, grab some of my blue that's left, and mix my black and my blue together so that I can make kind of like a navy blue, right? Okay. And then I'll take some of this navy blue and kind of streak it like we did earlier. Remember how we kind of flicked up from the bottom like that, and we flick down from the top and kind of streak that in there. And since it's still wet with the regular blue, it sort of blends as you streak. There we go. So that's cool, okay? There's the blue up close. There's the flowers up close. No, they're not pretty yet. We're getting them there, I promise, okay? Okay. Let's let that hang out for a minute, and I know that I want this to be white, so I can go ahead and put some white on there. And I said I was going to do black, but I almost think I want to do white. On the trim on here, we actually had a red barn in our backyard. It was just a little one. It was kind of like a shed barn type thing, but it had cute little white trim around it. Now, if your red is still wet, then you probably want to bust out that blow dryer and blow dry your canvas first before you put this on there, because I think I have yellow mixed in with my white somehow, but otherwise you'll be smearing white and red together, and then you'll just have pink instead of white, right? Because white and red makes pink. Okay, there, that kind of cleans that up. Now I am going to grab just a little bit of that tan and kind of mix it over here with some white so that I dirty up my white, right? Because there is no barn, probably in America, that has a perfectly white. So if we dirty it up just a little, and I'll show you up close because you probably can't tell, but dirty that white up just a little, it kind of makes it look a little more authentic. Let me put a little bit more right there, okay? So see, can you tell I dirtied it up just a smidge? Okay. Now, while I have this in my brush, I might as well add a couple little flicks on my flag, because that would not be perfectly white either. We talked about that earlier. So if you want to add, oh no, I just got green in there. Okay, if that happens, watch. You don't freak out about it. We just grab some napkin, we wrap it around our finger, we dip it in our water, preferably clean water, but you gotta catch it quick before it dries. And then you just rub it right off. You just rub your oopsie right off like it never happened. And then you take a dry part of it and dry it up, and it's gone. How cool is that? Okay, stick that back on there. Now I gotta get all that green out of my brush. Can't believe I did that, but that's okay. That was good that I did that, because I was able to show you how to fix an oopsie. Okay, let's try this again. Flick a little bit of tan in there without touching the green. There we go. And I'm actually, just for style purposes, gonna flick a little bit on my red as well. Just because my flag is kind of blending into my red barn a little bit, so flicking some white on top of my red stripes, and it's not even white, it's that dirty tan, but flicking that on there really helps make it stand out a little bit different, okay? Okay, so now I'm going to use some of this mustardy yellow from earlier and kind of go around and do a little, I'm going to make a little bit more mustard. And I am going to add just the teeniest amount of red. Like I'm talking ant size amount of red. Mix that in, and when I put red in with yellow, it kind of gives it an orangey feel. But as long as I just do a teeny bit, then it won't be super noticeable. It won't be orangey. Okay, so I am working, and this will take a minute. Be careful not to get into your green. If you do, just wipe it off on your napkin and re-dip in your yellow. There we go. Awesome. Okay. I like adding this brown in here because it adds some depth to our flowers. And see how it's not perfect? It doesn't have to be perfect, guys. Okay? Just have fun with it. They're just quick little brush strokes. Okay? Quick brush strokes. Quick. But it kind of hides the black Sharpie a little bit, and it gives our flowers a little bit more depth. Because right now they just kind of look flat because they are flat. They're just one color. I mean, and I know they're literally flat. They're on a canvas, but ooh, a little gnat in here. Okay. There we go. Almost done. So like I said, this is a good reason to have some jams on, and that way you can kind of relax while you're painting. Okay, now I guess I should bring some brown over there, shouldn't I? Okay, so now I want to add a chunk of white over here in my yellow. Just like that, and just kind of put a little, well, it's even noticeable, little dollop of white in there, like that. And so that adds even more depth to our flower by flicking that white in there. Well, light yellow. It's not white. Am I going the wrong way? Oh, I am. Everything's backwards on that screen. There we go. Come on. Can you see it though? Okay, hopefully you could kind of see what I was doing. It's not super noticeable. It's a very subtle little pop of lighter yellow in there. Of course, you can make it more noticeable by adding more white. This is your painting. You do you. You do you. And know that sometimes they take a while, and it's okay to hop up and walk away from it for a little bit and come back to it. Sometimes you have to like walk away from your painting for a minute because it like gets burned into your eyeballs, into your vision. So it helps if you walk away for a minute and come back to it. Go get you a little snacky, step outside, get some fresh air, return a phone call, and then come back to it. So that's like the total luxury of doing this at home. Okay, I am going to add even more blue to my green because I want to darken it up some more. And, oh yeah, now we're getting there. I need some more blue. Okay. Once you get your green even darker, how you like it, maybe a little bit more. Like I said, it's always good to start out with just a little bit at a time. You can always add more. You can't take it out once it's in there, right? Okay, but now I can go back and kind of add this little bit of darker green in there, especially on the undersides of each leaf, like the bottom half of each leaf, just so it looks a little darker, shows a little bit of depth. So like this whole bottom half of the leaf, like that. And if you like it a lot, you could always just put it on the whole thing, right? Because it's your painting, and there's no wrong answer. Be careful in all these little in-between spots. If you need to switch to a smaller brush, then do that. So that way you don't get frustrated with yourself and paint the wrong thing. Now I'm going to add a little bit of white to that green I just made to make a softer version and kind of sweep that on top of that first version, because I didn't love that first version of green that I made. So we'll just kind of sweep that on top. So this is just white mixed into the green I just made. But, so now we have like lighter green and we have darker green. So it shows a little bit of dimension that way. Makes our painting a little more interesting. There we go. Lovely, lovely, fabulous. Okay, we're getting so close, guys. Clean my brush out again. Now the stars kind of have me a little nervous, so I'm going to switch to a baby brush. I'm going to do some white. And I'm going to kind of pinpoint where I want them. So maybe 4. And then the next row we stagger them in between. And then this row will be this right underneath the first row. That. Okay, so that's what it looks like. I know they don't look like stars yet, but see how they're staggered? Okay. Now I'm going to do up, diagonal, diagonal, down, down. Okay, so I'm going to do vertical, diagonal, 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 diagonal. Vertical, diagonal, 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 diagonal. Just like that. All the way down. Or not all the way down, but all the way across all of them. Vertical, diagonal, 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 diagonal. And because this is such a small brush, it doesn't hold much paint. So you'll find yourself having to dip in the white quite a bit. Now obviously the harder you push with this brush, the thicker your lines will be. So try to keep the same amount of pressure on all of them. If you push hard on one, you got to push hard on all of them. If you push soft on one, you got to push soft on all of them. Now of course if you push soft, you can always go back and do it again, pushing a little bit harder if you need to. There we go. Those aren't so bad, right? Not so bad. Now if your baby brush has some crazy hairs, you might find a different one. Okay, there we go. I think mine got a little bigger as I went, didn't they? Okay. There. Now I've got this white in my brush, I'm going to go through and add some white on all of my sunflowers. Just a little dab. So now my sunflowers have 4 colors on them. They have their base yellow, they have their mustardy yellow outline, they have a light yellow center, and now I'm adding a pop of straight white right on top of them. See the straight white? Okay. You know what? There might be a star like right here, kind of coming off. What do you think? Probably? Probably. Okay. There we go. Maybe do just a little bit, little curve, little curve, little curve, little curve. Then do a little sweep, little sweep, little sweep. Can't even tell. I think I'm gonna leave that alone. Okay. Maybe, oh, I know where I need it. On the tops of the leaves, so the tops of the curves. Anywhere that would be like a top curve or left, top or left, okay? Now, we talked about putting a little bit of brown in our barn. This is that dark brown from earlier. Just kind of sweeping it right in there. There we go. Put a little bit right in here. So this is not black, even though it kind of looks like it. It's that dark brown that we made earlier. Go, and then I feel like our flag needs to be outlined. What do y'all think? So I'm using my medium pointy brush. If you feel better using your baby brush, then use that one. There we go. Okay. Little bit in there. Awesome. So I did on top of the diagonal, on top of the horizontal, and I'm going to use some of this dark brown, and I am going to carefully but kind of sloppily outline the very outside of our barn, and I think it looks good if it's sort of a uneven, kind of broken line. Why not? There we go. And I think I'll do right there. Okay, so now our barn has some depth. I think I'm going to add a little bit of this dark on the opposite side of my leaves and kind of in here from where I did the highlights. So the highlights were on the top, so that means that the shadows should kind of be on the bottoms, if you can, and kind of in there in that thickness, kind of in here in that thickness, okay? So that's what I've done so far. Okay. And then while I still have all this brown in my brush, I am going to make kind of like the wood planks but there's not much brown in my brush, so that would probably be one. Probably have one here, probably have one here, and here. So there's not hardly any paint on my brush. This is a very broken, not perfect line. Okay, probably there, 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 there. Okay, there we go. That gives it that wood feel, right? Totally does. Okay, put a little bit of it up here. Although would it be, maybe I'll leave that alone up there. Trying to think. Maybe we'll just kind of trying to follow where my other lines were, but not bring it all the way down to the other line, if that makes sense. So it doesn't go all the way up to the roof, and it doesn't go all the way up to that horizontal line. Okay? And it's very broken looking. Okay. And there's one more thing I want to do, I think, to my flag. I am going to take some more of that dark red, and you maybe even want to use your baby brush. And I'm going to use some of that dark red and kind of go right on top of that Sharpie line. And kind of rough up that Sharpie line with this dark red. Just so it doesn't look like a black Sharpie line, and it kind of just looks like a loose paint job. That's kind of my style. I don't like everything to be exactly perfect, and I love layers of paint. Now, if you like the black line, you can totally use your Sharpie and retrace all of those black lines, actually, if you want to. I do that to a lot of my paintings. We go back with our Sharpie and retrace them, but this one I just kind of like it more rustic looking and less perfect. Kind of has that whole country vibe. There. Okay, let's make our blue just a little bit darker. Wipe that red out, get a little bit more black. Make it a little bit darker, because I want to do the same thing to the blue. We'll go right here and sort of retrace that line with the dark blue. Retrace this line. Put some dark blue right there, some dark blue right there. There we go. Oh yeah, baby. There, peeps. What do you think? That's a pretty awesome flag, right? Oh my gosh. I am in love. I'm in love. I'm in love. I'm in love. I love it. Okay, so now's the time you kind of look it over. You see if there's any white spots. You see if there's any spots that need to be touched up. We didn't paint the bottom, so you can flip it upside down, and you could just do one color across the bottom, or you can try to match the colors, some green, some yellow, some brown, some yellow, some green, some red. So you can kind of try to match your colors or just do one solid color across the bottom. Doesn't matter. We have blue pretty much across, but it's up to you. So, ta-da! You should give yourself a pat on the back and be so proud of yourself. This is amazing. I know you did fabulous. And remember, yours is not supposed to look like mine. Mine is not supposed to look like yours, because they are their own paintings. And another thing to remember is, once you get it up on the wall and you look at it from a distance, how it's meant to be viewed, you're going to love it. Okay, they're not meant to be viewed this close. Artwork is not meant to be viewed that close, okay? So thank you so much for hanging out with me. Please send me pictures. I want to see. I miss not being able to see my kiddos' artwork by doing this digital stuff. So see, if you send me pictures, then I don't miss it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And of course, I cannot wait to do some more art with you.